This is a presentation on the medical device industry by John Kirby. What is a medical device? A medical device is an instrument that is used to diagnose, prevent, or treat a disease or condition, but not through a chemical action, which would be a drug. So what is the current state of the industry? In the medical device realm, there has been an increase in competition and demand for devices that can reduce cost, recovery time, and be less invasive for patients. With improvements to the worldwide economy since the most recent recession, hospitals are seeking to find such innovative devices and seamlessly fit them into their budgets, causing an increase in innovation and demand. The medical device industry can best be described by economic concepts, and in this case, 3 economic concepts can help describe what is going on and what needs to be done. Those economic concepts are supply and demand, oligopoly market structure, and economies of scale. So for our first point, for supply and demand, we're talking about supply. So supply is the various types of products and devices that are created, marketed, and sold in the medical device industry are primarily driven by what the hospital patient needs and desires are. Hospital patients are constantly looking for ways to make their hospital stays faster and more enjoyable. Hospitals are also seeing a benefit in providing devices to their patients that demonstrate value because of the fact that they are not reimbursed by the government merely for the products that they are spending their money on. I found an article from a leading medical device blog which describes the changes to the development of medical devices that manufacturers are realizing. So here's what the article stated. Medical device manufacturers have always needed to demonstrate the value of their products for healthcare providers, insurers, and purchasers. But now they must be prepared to quantify this value in terms of quality measures, so it can be compared with alternatives. This means going beyond clinical trial results and leveraging electronic health records, billing, and medical sensor data to answer basic questions. For example, basic questions like, how much value does a medical device add in terms of patient outcomes? And how does this compare with other alternatives? Another question is, how much money does it have or does it save compared with other treatment options? When I was reviewing this article, I started to think of other questions because this article really gets after medical device manufacturers that aren't asking themselves basic questions like, what is the value of my device? And is it going to provide a benefit to not only the patient but also to the hospital? Will this device save money? Will this device provide a more pleasant experience for the hospital patient? These questions create the supply and the demand that medical device manufacturers must adhere to in order to be successful. So factors of supply. Farnham defines supply as the relationship that is between the price of a device and quantity that is supplied from the manufacturers of it. For the purposes of this project, I have specifically found the important factors that affect the supply in the medical device industry as technology, research and development, and government regulations. So the state of technology. Technology is a very important aspect of medical devices, and it is something that is constantly being improved upon. Changes in medical device technology have paved the way for people to be diagnosed and treated better since the beginning of the industry. As a result of the medical technology constantly being improved upon, countless lives have been saved, and the overall quality of life continues to improve over time. Larger scale technologies like MRI machines, artificial organs, and robotic prosthetic limbs are examples of how technology has undoubtedly made an incredible impact on medicine, and the technology can only get better. This next part that I have here is from the website Healthcare Business and Technology, which states the key factors behind working to constantly improve medical technology. The article states, improving quality of life is one of the main benefits of integrating new innovations into medicine. Medical technologies like minimally invasive surgeries, better monitoring systems, and more comfortable scanning equipment are allowing patients to spend less time in recovery and more time enjoying a healthy life. The second factor supply. The second factor in supply is the research and development, and this is the foundation of the actual device. Research has shown that if there is to be continued downward pressure on pricing and narrowing of the profit margins, there may be a slowdown in the evolution of improved technologies. Companies that are the big players in the medical device industry spend vast amounts of money on the research and development of their products. For example, in 2011, Johnson & Johnson had a budget of over $7.5 billion for research and development of medical devices. Another leading manufacturer is Abbott Labs, and they had an R&D budget in 2011 of $4.1 billion. The point of this section is that in order to meet the supply needs of the public, a great deal of time, effort, and finances have to go into the development of these products. As a result of these large R&D budgets, there is not an indication that pricing will begin to narrow, as these manufacturers need to be successful so that the research and development can continue. Now, many of the world's leading medical device manufacturers are located in the United States. The U.S. market value for medical device represented 38% in 2012, and total exports of medical device exceeded $44 billion. Now, the following chart, which will be up on the next slide, was taken from the Federal Reserve Economic Data of St. Louis, and it provides information that relates to the amount of medical device equipment being produced in the U.S. And so here is that chart. Now, the blue line represents the Industrial Production Index that measures the real output of all relevant establishments located in the U.S., regardless of their ownership, but not those that are located in U.S. territories. So despite the fact that the U.S., which again represents 38% of medical devices, they have a small presence in importing devices. The red line represents the amount of medical equipment that is being exported from the U.S. to other countries. Staggering differences between how much is produced and what's actually brought back in. One of the more interesting piece of information that this graph represents is the steady decline over the last year of medical devices being exported. Demand is running high in the U.S. markets, and supply has been increasing for the past 4 years. As a result of high demand, the medical device industry has pulled back on the amount that they have exported to other countries, and instead provide those additional products to the consumers in the U.S. that need them. This, in turn, has opened the doors to other medical device manufacturers that are able to fill the void in the international markets that the U.S. has vacated. This leads us then into the third point, which is government regulations. The FDA closely monitors the ongoings of the medical device industry, and as a result, medical devices have to be manufactured in a certain way that is in compliance with the FDA regulations. At the same time, the devices have to be manufactured in a way that is to meet the need of the hospital patients the device is intended for. The FDA regulations are in place to require various aspects of design, clinical evaluation, manufacturing, packaging, labeling, and post-market surveillance of medical devices. Public policy is also to blame for any shortcomings of technology with medical devices. An article I found in Forbes mentions that the medical device industry is being ravaged by unwise public policy, including a devastating 2.3% excise tax that took effect on January 1st of this year, 2015, as a part of Obamacare. Farnham goes on to describe other regulations that have been put in place to protect the manufacturer from other competitors and to protect the industry then as a whole. These regulations also have the tendency to act as barriers to entry for the supply and market of medical devices. The barriers to entry of which the government has created that Farnham identifies are licenses, patents, and copyrights. I will cover these barriers in more detail later in this project, as I will be discussing the market structure. However, the barriers to entry are also applicable to the supply of medical devices. I found an example in Australia of how barriers to entry and government regulations affected businesses there. And the article stated, a uniform national framework creates a barrier to entry into the market by imposing guidelines and restrictions on the provision of services. And this is a step toward improving the outcomes for consumers with a national regulatory scheme. Raising the standards and distinguishing good practice by operators who offer cosmetic medical services provides a clear distinction for consumers about what to expect in relation to quality services. By its nature, guidelines and regulation present opportunities for businesses that provide superior services to thrive. This article speaks directly to the hurdles that manufacturers need to work past so that they create devices that are not just FDA compliant, but also compliant with the rules and standards of other countries, just like Australia. So now I'm going to talk about demand. Demand is a very important concept in economics for the medical device industry. Farnham defines demand as a functional relationship between the price of a good and the quantity that is demanded by the consumers in a given period of time. As was mentioned earlier, new and updated technology is very important to today's consumers in the medical device industry. Technology that in the long run is able to reduce overall expenses and is able to help patients in a better and smarter way. Take, for example, a product developed by IBM called Watson, which is a computer-generated doctor assistant. Doctors today are overwhelmed with information, but then accompanied by Watson, the information that is basically a talking computer has in its system is incredible. There was a clip that I noticed in the newspaper of the New York Times that identified what Watson is intended to be used for. This is a small clip. This is what it stated. Watson can be a powerful tool in moving toward the long-sought goal in healthcare of making more decisions based on data and a surer grasp of the relevant scientific evidence, so-called evidence-based medicine, instead of experience and intuition. Watson, my reactions to that then was that basically Watson will ultimately do what it is intended to do, and it will make the patient experience more enjoyable. Later in that article, it went on to say that what Watson will do for patients, one of the ways it will be useful to fulfill a better patient experience. The article went on to state, Watson will do whatever it's programmed to do, eliminating unnecessary and often repetitive medical tests. This is a big cost-saving target, and a good one for patients and for healthcare budgets. The research then on this subject concluded that about half the patients get too much treatment and about half get too little. Other factors that are increasing demand and influencing demand for medical device products is the aging population of people across the world. The purchasing power over the last few years has significantly improved from where it was during and just after the 2008 recession. Purchasing power has also returned to countries in Europe and Asia, who for years were unable to purchase state-of-the-art technology because of economic laws that limited the number of elective procedures that are performed. These limits on financial resources negatively impacted the demand levels. But now that economic resources in these countries have stabilized and even improved, demand is going back up. I have also here an article which addressed the levels of demand of products that are available to patients at their home. This is according to analyst Bill Martineau. He stated that U.S. demand for home medical equipment will increase by 8.2% annually through 2018. This is where his study went through 2018 to generate in sales of $12.6 billion. Advances in the technological capabilities of products, coupled with ongoing healthcare cost containment efforts, will underlie the growth. The introduction of new and improved devices will expand the number of medical conditions and patients adaptable to effective home treatment, management, and monitoring. Cost savings advantages will promote the increasing substitution of home healthcare services for hospital, ambulatory, and nursing home procedures whenever feasible. 15 years ago, the idea of home medical equipment was something that people were not even aware could be a possibility. Demand in the U.S. is incredibly high for products that can be delivered and administered to a person at their home. From the perspective of the hospital, it is a much better service to be able to provide health care to the elderly at their home instead of the hospital, and it will be a big reduction in the hospital's budget. So now I also want to talk here, my second concept is the market structure. In the medical device industry, there are a limited number of large competitors, which is why the industry falls into the category of an oligopoly. Using Farnham's textbook, it is simple to understand that the medical device industry is made up of a limited number of large competitors, where the products can be both differentiated and undifferentiated. With patent protection and copyright laws, there are many barriers to entry. The prices of the devices are for the most part not shared with the other competitors, and this is because of interdependent behavior. Now, I also found an article supporting this. This article was taken from healthaffairs.org, and it speaks directly to the market structure that defines the medical device industry. Here's what the article stated. Hospitals buy many expensive medical devices used in patients' treatment. Although some devices are sold in competitive commodity markets, sellers of the more expensive and specialized devices operate in oligopolistic markets with few competitors. In these markets, not all buyers pay the same price to a seller for a given or similar product. Buyers might not know the prices other buyers have paid. Much of the device market, thus, does not fit the description of a competitive market in a competitive equilibrium. With the law of one price holding, price driven down to long-run marginal costs and profits limited to the competitive level. So, with oligopolistic firms running the market for medical devices, one would think that it would be very difficult to find competitive prices. What has happened, though, is that hospitals are very vocal with their budgets and their holistic approach to spending money wisely. They do their very best to stay aware with what the needs of their patients are and to get them the products that are needed the most. Okay. The products and services in oligopoly are both differentiated and undifferentiated. What makes them different can be found in the level of service that they provide to their customers. The quality of service is in the perception of the consumer, and whether or not the value equals the perceived quality of service. Hospitals that are satisfied with the manufacturer will stay loyal to that manufacturer, and both will see enhanced revenue. Hospitals are trying to buy the best quality products that come at the most affordable amount. As such, there will always be competition to produce and sell medical devices to hospitals regardless of the oligopoly structure that this industry is in. As of late, there have been a new innovation that seeks to take away market share from the lead competitors in the medical device industry. And this innovation is called disruptive technology. Disruptive technology seeks to create new markets with the new technology that disrupts the way an earlier technology has existed. This type of innovation creates new areas for competition to begin where there is no longer the threat of barriers to entry. This is the role that new technology can play into and provide a better way for competitors to make their own play into this industry. My third and final concept is economies of scale. The segment of the medical industry is not a common concept. However, it has become more prominent in recent years that are considered post-2008 recession. Farnham defines economies of scale as achieving lower unit costs of production by adopting a larger scale of production. Farnham also states that economies of scale can create barriers to entry because only the larger companies can afford to be sustainable with smaller costs. I found an article here that provides an example of applying the economies of scale concept to leasing medical devices, which has created a market that small competitors can afford to compete in. This was actually taken from the Global Industry Analyst. This is what they stated. The economic downturn has severely affected capital budgets of various healthcare centers and hospitals, where the need for acquiring new equipment continues to provide better patient care and survive competition. As a result, several hospitals began adopting operating leasing agreements in a bid to put any such acquisitions out of balance sheets. Operating leases enable cash-strapped hospitals and healthcare centers to acquire new equipment without the need to wait for the time when capital budgets would be substantial enough to make purchases. The leasing plans, so basically then what this is saying is that the leasing plans provided a way for hospitals to continue to receive state-of-the-art technology for their hospital patients while at the same time not overburdening their overall budgets. With limited budgets in most of Europe and Asia, the leasing program is in fact a global effort, and it is in this leasing program that not even the playing field for some of the world's smaller medical devices, or world's smaller medical manufacturers. So now for my conclusion. The medical device is vulnerable today. Despite being the largest in the world with over 6,500 companies, 80% of those are small to medium-sized companies. Most of them have 50 employees or less. This industry has key struggles, and the most important is how can they provide state-of-the-art medical devices to a market that wants the devices but is constrained by lean budgets. The number of the elderly is increasing every year, and people still have the same needs and wants. They want devices that are longer lasting, less invasive, and offer a faster recovery. Hospitals are conveying this information to the government and to the device manufacturers. The manufacturers, in turn, are looking at how they can provide the same level of service without negatively impacting their financial budgets. Unfortunately, there is not a clear answer that can make both parties happy. Either the medical device companies will produce top quality devices and sell them at lower cost. That sounds unlikely to me. Or they will have to produce lower quality materials and risk losing market share. The demand is there, but it is not meeting the supply. The medical device industry needs to focus on economies of scale and find solutions that appeal to the demand of their consumer. If the industry fails, room will be made for younger and brighter companies to enter and hopefully change the course for the betterment of those in need of medical devices. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.